Hong Kong movie freaks tend to have come in one of two ways. Either you were a film buff or you were a martial arts buff. For somebody who came in through martial arts, 36th Chamber is, as good as it's going to get.
Lau Kar-leung, director of 36th Chamber of Shaolin, was and is a very serious, thoughtful man who came out of the culture of martial arts schools and martial arts training, and who believed in the good effects of that training on character. And his movies are in some ways all about young people coming to adulthood, and they're about education and families and teachers and students.
Lau Kar-leung comes from a long line of martial artists.
Lau Kar-leung's career in Chinese martial arts movies goes back to the 50s and some of the earliest post-war Hong Kong martial arts movies. And he was a stuntman and martial arts choreographer, and Lau Kar-leung set out to direct because he was impatient with the way the martial arts were presented in the films that he choreographed for Zhang Che and some other people, and wanted to present what were, by his lights, more accurate versions of where the arts came from and the culture of the martial arts.
36th Chamber of Shaolin is the quintessential training sequence film. It was a common element in martial arts films to have a training sequence. But prior to this, I don't think anybody had made a film that was essentially, entirely a training sequence.
It's the one that defined the depiction of Shaolin Temple training in Kung Fu movies. The image in these martial arts movies of the martial monk, a religious figure who can also fight, goes back quite a ways. Supposedly, the martial arts were invented by a monk. This guy, Bodhidharma, who visited the northern Shaolin Temple from India and noticed that the monks at their meditation tended to fall asleep. This is the way the story goes. So he instituted a program of physical exercise, which involved eventually martial arts.
Monks are not always kind of the way we think of monks. These are not Franciscans. They are spiritual, but the spiritual thing is completely bound up with defense and with the notion that you win the fight because you've learned to move in some way that's in accordance with nature, rather than that because you've got the strongest muscle.
The training process in these movies often is a process of growing up. The term Kung Fu means literally skill acquired over time. So not only is the training implied, the strength of character needed to undergo the training is implied.
One of the things that's present in 36 Chamber is this notion that learning how to fight is part of this bigger process that has to do with learning how to live and learning how to be a righteous person. You really can see what it is that's being taught. I mean, in a sense that's not just some physical skill, but some deeper lesson in each of these chambers.
In 36 Chamber, the perspective is a little bigger because it has this political dimension to it. It's not only that he can now go back and avenge his family, it's that he understands that the people who he's angry at are oppressors, and he's going to train future soldiers of the resistance to this regime. So his perspective becomes broader, and that is an element that's very Lau Kar-leung. The idea that your view of the world expands and deepens as a result of this training.
36 Chamber of Shaolin is about as serious a Lau Kar-leung film as I can think of, and yet his style is such that there is this sort of ironic tone to a lot of it, particularly when he's initially failing at these tasks. And even when he's succeeding at them and learning the lessons, there's something very droll about the entire training sequence.
Lau Kar-leung's comic impulse is very clearly evident in the immediate sequel to 36 Chamber, in which Gordon Liu returns not as Sante, but as somebody who is pretending to be Sante, who goes to the temple and meets the real Sante, played by a different actor. It's a very striking thing that somebody would follow their own most popular film with, in effect, a parody of it. That speaks to Lau Kar-leung's spirit, I think, which isn't somber, it isn't serious, it isn't grim, and is playful, and thinks of all of those qualities as being part and parcel of what he believes in. Gordon Liu was Lau Kar-leung's martial brother. Gordon is sometimes wrongly described as the adopted son of Lau Kar-leung's father, but he was a brother, a martial brother, in the sense that all of these students of a master, and he was one of the senior, best, most favored students of Lau Kar-leung's father.
So they grew up as brothers, and certainly when Lau Kar-leung became a director, Gordon Liu became sort of his greatest instrument, with the exception of himself, possibly. But he himself didn't have the right look to be the central martial arts hero, which Gordon Liu does have.
36 Chamber was the first film in which Gordon made a big splash as an actor, and essentially because he has the perfect look and seriousness somehow and demeanor for somebody who would willingly undergo this kind of trial.
Besides the fact that Gordon Liu is such a terrific performer and that he can do comedy and action sort of interchangeably and mingled, the fact that their attitudes are in sync because they were raised together, they presumably have some sort of communication that Lau Kar-leung is not going to have with some actor he met last week.
The influence of this film can be seen not only in immediate sequels and pseudo-sequels and hundreds of Shaolin films thereafter, but also in the fact that this film really created the pattern that's used in, for instance, every Western or Hollywood film that has imitated the martial arts genre pattern, from Karate Kid to The Empire Strikes Back. And this is, in some way, the most majestic and detailed version of that, and the most popular. It's the version that cemented this pattern on people's retinas.